Welcome to episode 18 of the White Whale Marketing Podcast. I'm Chris, and as always, we're in collaboration with the Sport Marketeer. The Sport Marketeer is a newsletter that we founded to kind of update you with whatever topics, ideas, and things going on within the sports marketing space. With that, today I'm joined by Haral, one of our team members. Haral, how's it going?
Not too bad,
Perfect.
not too bad.
Yeah, so as always, we have three topics that we're going to discuss. These are the three topics that are going to be featured in tomorrow's newsletter of the Sport Marketeer. If you're interested, you can go to the link in the description. You can sign up to our Substack, and from there, you'll be able to get the newsletter sent directly to your inbox, and you'll have these topics, ideas, whatever else to talk about with your peers regarding sports marketing. So, the three topics that we're going to be chatting about today, unlike most weeks, we've always kind of talked about, European international football, right? That's kind of the big thing considering the clients we have, and also just with the news of Canada soccer, XYZ. But today we're going to be talking American football. So today's episode is just about that. And the three topics are the NFL granting rights to new marketing international rights for various clubs. So that's going to be something of interest coming here soon. Also, Fan Control Football League that has found a partnership with the Zone, and we're just be talking about, hey, what's next. And last but not least, we're in the business of athlete marketing, right, Haral? And with that, when players like Tom Brady, shout out the goat, when he does things, especially something where it's kind of creating a roadmap for athletes, we got to talk about it a bit more and kind of break it down. So yeah, we'll get into that now. First topic, it's gonna be one of the ones I'm gonna be writing about, and that's the NFL granting um, international marketing rights. So that's pretty interesting, right? Because the NFL has, over the last number of years, even I would say even the last maybe 20 years, right, when they did NFL Europe, they've always kind of been trying to venture out into these new markets, develop fandom across the world for the game, right? Kind of make American football similar to international football and kind of make it global, right? So with that, I'll just kind of show this graphic so people can kind of see what kind of rights were given, right? So for us being in Canada, the two big ones are the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks getting rights in in Canada, and then what that entails is essentially just they're allowed to maybe operate within those markets a little more similar to how they do at home, so that they can have in-person events. They can have partnerships in those areas, as well as just reading the list here, fan events, football activities, merchandise sales, co-marketing relationships, and or co-marketing relationships with other sports and entertainment properties. So if you're in Ottawa, that's essentially maybe being like the Vikings partnering with Ottawa Sports Entertainment Group, or in Toronto, MLSE, and then likewise in Vancouver with Canucks Entertainment. Is that what it is?
CSE, yep.
Yeah, sports entertainment. Okay, yeah. So the question I have with that is, what? Let me pull this back up so you can maybe see it a little clearer. What are your thoughts on this overall? Right? I don't know about you, but my first thought is when I saw Canada, I was kind of surprised that the Bills weren't given Canada as well.
Yeah, I mean, as a Bills fan, I'm upset. But overall, I think it's definitely it's an interesting venture, and I think it's smart because we obviously talk about globalization. We talk about the growing the league and growing the sports beyond the borders. Normally, we've been talking about bringing European soccer to North America,
Yep.
and at times we've talked a little bit about growing North American sports worldwide. We had the Bills in Toronto series. The NFL plays games in England. We've had, the NHL go to China. But one thing you've noticed about what I said about all those names, I mentioned the league and not the teams. This idea I think is really cool because it's something we haven't really seen before. Giving like exclusive rights and assigning teams certain countries in international markets to create fan loyalty, to create a form of, I guess, create a fan base and create some sort of loyalty towards a certain team as opposed to the league in order to ignite fandom within all these international markets. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are the best example because they always play in London. And
Mm-hmm.
there's been a lot of great fandom that's been created out of Gardner Minshew going over to the UK and playing that game in England created he became an icon for a day, right? Just with him, his stash, and the memes that came out of that day. Like he got a lot of clout after that game from the England audience.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just say, I'm a big fan of this because it's something different from how leagues want to grow internationally. And
Mhm.
I think it's a step in the right direction and a model for other leagues to potentially consider.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on there. I like how maybe it allows certain teams to focus on those areas, like we're talking about the Jaguars, right? On my podcast, The Route, I think probably over a year ago, maybe 2 years now that I think about it, I had the vice president of I think international business or international development. He was like one of the top executives for the Jaguars, and his office was solely based in London, right? So he was solely focused on that market and actually growing the game there. So that's actually an interesting episode. I want to hear about how this works when these teams are going to new markets. Where I'm curious if all these teams are going to be, setting up offices right across all these different markets. And something that's kind of interesting too that I just noticed when you were speaking was first off, the first thing we said, some teams aren't featured here, right? We talked about the Bills. That's kind of interesting. But then, kind of building on that as well, the Rams, if I'm not mistaken, and the Dolphins are featured in three different markets. So the Rams are in Australia, China, and Mexico. And then the Dolphins are in Brazil, Spain, and the UK. Interesting, no? Wouldn't you say? How some teams aren't included at all, and some teams have, three different um, you know,
Yeah,
markets to work with.
I, it's a good point. I think it may you really have to maybe consider which teams are excluded, and maybe that's something that we'll see in the sport markets here there where you talk about those teams, and it'll get people thinking about why are those teams not featured in the international market, right? Maybe the Bills and Toronto series was not success, like it clearly wasn't successful to run for multiple years after that small pilot project, but maybe
Mhm.
that's the reason why Buffalo's focusing on the Bills mafia within the nation there. And maybe with
Yeah,
the LA Rams, after relocating from St. Louis to Los Angeles, hey, maybe they're actually having a tough time with the domestic fan base that the NFL wants to push them internationally. Also, because they have the star power to do so as well. Going to the Super Bowl, they have Aaron Donald. Matthew Stafford's there now. Like they have big name marketable players, but the same can't be said for someone like the Miami Dolphins. So there's a lot of questions there where it's like, you got good teams, you've got not so great teams, you've got marketable stars, you've got the big name athletes, but you also have teams with a strong domestic loyalty, like the Dallas Cowboys, who are, granted rights in Mexico, which makes sense because of their proximity to Texas and stuff. But it still gets you thinking about, like, uh, geographically as well as just domestic fan base wise, certain teams you think that should be included weren't included, and vice versa. Like, obviously, you see the teams that need help.
yeah. No, one of the things I think maybe is interesting what made the selection process is maybe obviously the Bills is always the one that ends up struggling with all this, but I'm sure it's even just the travel patterns of people in those markets, right? Where you kind of see Miami and LA, the teams that are kind of some of the biggest hotspots for people to go visit when they come to the US, right? Those are the teams that have the most international marketing rates, right? Where, yeah, it makes sense where Australia, people go to LA fairly often because that's probably the easiest way to get North America, right? When you go from Sydney to LA. And then similar with Miami definitely has a lot of South American people, right? So it makes sense why they would be the ones, um, you know, based with those marketing rights there. So pretty interesting. And maybe it's also just some brands that need help growing, where maybe the Bills Mafia and I'm trying to think of some other ones. Oh, it's the Browns that also came to mind. Even though whether they win or lose, they have strong fan bases regardless. So maybe that's something the league isn't necessarily interested in, or maybe the team's really, hey, like, no, I think we're comfortable here, and our fans just want to keep it homegrown. So yeah,
Yeah.
lots to
Is
think
there
of.
is there one that, like, maybe just take a quick scan here, but like I think a cool question would be which one do you think, like, which one is the most questionable that you want to know more about and why the NFL chose it? Because I'm looking at the list here and I see one in particular for me, but I'll let you like take a quick scan, Chris, and see if there's one where you're like this it's bringing a lot of questions in your head.
Yeah. So the one market to me that makes a little I wasn't really sure about was in regards to Spain. I
Mhm.
and the Bears. I didn't. Well, not even just Spain, the Bears. Spain as a whole. I didn't really understand that, but maybe there's something I'm missing there. Germany. I know maybe that's probably the one with the Patriots. Like I know that like the fandom's crazy and all that stuff, and they're like, wait, what? But they also, I think they have a German player, which is the fullback. And at the same time, I've watched actually documentaries on American football in Germany. So it's actually a pretty big thing there, where that's where they have like a professional league there that's actually still doing well. So
Mhm.
um, I know when I was looking at it, definitely the Patriots was one that kind of rose my eye 'cause I'm a Pats fan, but then
Yeah.
also just regards to the Spanish market, right? Where that's not really, I wouldn't have thought that right away.
Yeah, true. I think Sebastian Vollmer, I don't know if he still plays for the Patriots, but he has some form of he probably has a German ancestry, right?
Oh, that I don't know, but he's not with them anymore.
Okay, yeah. The one that I was the most, well, not the most confused about, the one that I was like, huh, like there's two in the Mexican market. Obviously, Mexico's super close to the United States, so it makes sense to market there. But the Steelers and the Broncos was the
Okay.
one that, like, was pretty interesting because all the other ones, you could tell from a geographical standpoint it makes sense. So those two I was confused about. But I don't know. I'm gonna hand that over to you, Chris. You seem to have a
Yeah, yeah.
point there.
So you're 100% spot on. Where a lot of the Mexican ones are based off the geographic location, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Steelers. The reason why maybe when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of odd. But the reason why it makes sense is like the Steel Curtain. I think it was back in the 80s or whatever, whenever it was before our time, where they had such a good team. And I know even in Canada, like there's a I think baby boomers to Gen X, the Steelers had a major impact on them because they were winning so much. And the same thing
Mhm.
could probably be said with the Broncos. And I'm sure maybe one of the other things they actually probably looked into is in regards to where there's the most Mexicans
Yeah.
in in the U.S. I don't know why I lost my words there, but no, it's pretty interesting. I'm sure the Broncos, the Cowboys, and Steelers have a bunch of fans um, all over, you know, Mexico just because of the how well they did before the 2000s. But yeah, no,
Mm.
interesting topic, and obviously we'll get into that a bit more tomorrow. But for now, let's get into the next topic: fan control football. That's gonna be written by Haral. So take it away.
Yeah, a lot of us might not have heard of the fan-controlled football league, including myself here. Just learned about it for the first time, but they recently announced an exclusive streaming or a global marketing partnership with DAZN. And obviously, we've seen how DAZN can grow the popularity of a sport because it's trying to become this media giant and almost a one-stop shop for streaming. You'll subscribe to it for your EPL, you'll subscribe to it for your NFL, and then
Yeah.
because you have the subscription, when there's no games on, you'll be like, all right, what else is there on? Like you'll flip on the DAZN app to see what's available. And the fan controlled football league, you guys see the graphic there. That's a Johnny football there, Johnny Manziel, who actually played in the fan control football league. But if we go over to the next tab there, Chris, let's explain what the fan control football league is. One thing that we often forget and always need to remember is a lot of the times you'll see the words sports and entertainment linked together. Canucks Sports and Entertainment, Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment Group. The commercialization of sport is always involved in entertainment, and the FCF is the greatest. It's a great example of an organization going above and beyond to be bold. You look at it here; it's a 7v7 football league where the fans control the game. If you
Yeah.
scroll down to another graphic there, I'll explain a bit more there. But yeah, the games are only 1 hour long, so there's not a lot of yeah, that one right there.
So,
Yeah, there's not a lot of commitment there. It's only 1 hour games, but the fans call the shots. So they stream on Twitch. You have to vote for the players to get drafted in the roster every week, and they have like very interesting pre-draft shows. Players or fans get to actually watch game tape on other days, so they're not just streaming their games, but they're streaming, the film. So you get to be part of the film. It's like be a GM mode brought to life.
players are on new teams every week. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it says there. Yeah, teams get two franchise players that are selected by team owners, and then you get one keeper after the first game, but the rest of the guys are back in the player pool each week. So the O lines and the D lines, exactly like NFL fantasy almost, are like
Uh,
a unit. So you get the draft, like, this is the O line I want, this is the D
yeah.
line I want. So it combines fantasy with NFL via GM mode and live
Hmm.
in time during the games. Fans call the shots. So just like how you have Ask Madden, where you choose one of three plays, same thing here. You pull up the playbook, you choose one of three plays, and that's what the players execute. So it's really the most interactive form of trying to bring professional sports and fan interaction together. it's really interesting. Like, you see your pick your play and stuff there. It feels like you're watching NFL, like you're playing Madden or something, but that's literally what the game looks like. So, you choose your play. There's a fan vote on Twitch, as you guys see there. You get to interact and engage with it. I know at White Whale, we talk a lot about streaming. We talk about athletes being entertaining. We talk about, engagement with the audience. This league is obviously not going to be anywhere near the NFL in terms of, its growth and its fan base. But what do you think about this effort from the FCF to create a sporting product that is truly the most interactive and engaging of its kind, bringing, I guess, together the world of sports and entertainment like never before?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. Obviously, like you said, it's never going to compete with the NFL. But I was actually, we are in the sports and marketing space, right? So I still like look into different marketing stuff. And there was something in regards to, I think it was DoorDash and how they kind of started, right? And obviously there was all these different companies kind of, Skip the Dishes, Uber Eats, etc., kind of making their market share within the larger cities in the States. But they decided to be like, hey, you know what? We're going to offer this similar type of service, but we're going to go after the suburbs, right? So they kind of carved their own lane. I think this is what fan control football is kind of doing within the sporting space, right? Yeah, you can have the NFL, NHL, NBA, etc. Top tier athletes. They're going to be competing for, Hall of Fame, the Super Bowl, etc. But as you said, entertainment. I think in regards to actual meshing both sports and entertainment, this is going to be the best type of thing where is it going to draw 40,000 people, 60,000 people every week? Probably not. But within a smaller, maybe minor hockey arena, university arena, different things like that, I think it'd be great, right? Where you can see this thing taking place on, I'm just trying to think of American schedule, right? Because Sundays is NFL and then Saturdays would be college football. But maybe if you put an off time in the year, right, where maybe
Wednesday?
not Wednesday, yeah, I'm thinking this is more something you bring with your kids, and you'd hand them your phone or iPad, and they kind of go nuts, right? And then it's kind of a great way too to teach football, right? Where maybe it can increase the fandom. You can get kids into football earlier because it's more interactive, but at the same time, like I know when I was in high school, right, I was a football fan, so I knew how this all worked. But I had a friend that wanted to get into football. He was 16, never played football, never watched it, never played Madden. And I just had him come over and he would play football and he would see these different plays taking place, like as you can see here with on the screen. And that's how he kind of learned. He's like, okay, this position should be doing this. These are the rules, different things like that. So I think it's a great way to kind of educate the audience and maybe even if the NFL partner with them somehow, where it's more of like a development league where practice squad, like they expand the practice squad and let players go down there so the talent increases as well, but also, allows athletes to get reps. I think it would better
Mm-hmm.
be for like O line or D line because the skill positions would be tough to, you know, 7-on-7 in like a small arena. But no, it's interesting. I like it. It's carving your own lane. I think that's something you always have to do, right?
Yeah. The last note that I'll say on this is that I think it brings together. This is something that you should read in the piece as well. And obviously, like it's going to be interesting to see how DAZN as a platform will be beneficial for the FCF. But what I'll say to this is it's very interesting to bring together all of the wonderful things we have about sports streaming into one product. For people that hope that Dana White's not watching this, but for anyone who watches streams of the UFC or any sports on channels and websites that they might not be necessarily paying for, you have the chats there, right? People are always talking about the games together, like, oh, this guy's trash, this guy's a bum, or he's got to get a shooting up and stuff like that. This literally takes that and brings it into Twitch too, where it's like, like, oh wow, we've run like 5 running plays in a row and our running back is trash. Let's go to the passing play. Or you sit there and you're like, oh, why doesn't this guy just do this? Now you have the control to do something like this. And fantasy sports, finding these products that fantasy sports isn't going to, okay, fantasy sports brings in $1 billion, so it's not a comparison there. But the whole point of fantasy isn't necessarily to have that become the greatest behemoth and become bigger than the NFL. The point of it is to have fans interact with it in a different way so that people are engaged with the game beyond what's on the field. And I think the Fan Control Football League, like you said, Chris, is going to do something like that. So I hope people enjoy reading about the league and learning about it in the piece. And for future sports marketers out there, maybe learn a thing or two about what it's like to go above and beyond in the engagement side of sports.
Yeah, no, 100%. I couldn't agree more, right? Where, as you said, fantasy, the whole purpose of it, yeah, it's great that it's like a new, revenue stream for the league, but it's getting people's eyes and focused on the product way more, right? Because, now rather than just picking a team and only watching them on Sunday, now you gotta get the zone, you gotta get red zone, or you gotta get whatever because you need to watch, the 1 o'clock, the 4 o'clock, and the prime time game, and even on Monday and Thursday too, because you have guys in each one, and you have money on the line, you have bets, your buddies are poking fun at one another. So yeah, no, it makes total sense just to kind of, it's almost like owning the audience a bit more is what I'd say. But yeah, let's get to our last topic. Last but not least, I'm a huge Patriots fan, and we had our king at once, but he left. And with that all aside, being the sports marketers that we are, marketeers maybe I should say, um, today Tom Brady announced that they're launching a new apparel line called the Brady brand, I should say. And let me just pull this up here. And essentially, what that is Tom Brady was interested in creating a new line of apparel that takes into considerations the new innovations that are available in professional sports, right? And one of the things I'm going to be discussing about in the article, right, is every year you see within the jersey we see in the NBA or NHL, they're getting lighter, they're getting recyclable, or now they're able to, they have a little slot for you to track data with, right? So they're already innovating. So he's kind of taking this new technology and he's putting it into this apparel line. And not only that, but he's also maximizing on what's going on in the sports marketing space, specifically with athletes. And that's in regards to nil, right? So as you can see here, this is the quarterback for Michigan. And I believe this is a tennis player for Michigan. And then he also has, nope, that's not it. He has, what's his name? Sanders' son, right? So, yeah, like it's cool, right? Because he's just taking into consideration everything that's available, and he's just maximizing. And the thing that we're going to be talking about is, the perfect roadmap of, how to build an athlete's brand. So my question to you, Haral, before we kind of get into the roadmap of it all, does this surprise you, or is this something that you're like, no, I see it coming?
With Brady, nothing surprises me. Obviously, he's as big of a businessman and, as big of a brand as he is outside of the sport. What surprises me is that he has his Tom Brady 12 brand, right? Like he's already had a pre-existing player brand, and not growing that brand and creating a brand new Brady brand was very interesting because he could have easily brought in the nil athletes in that platform. Obviously, there's pros and cons there. I think there's a lot more cons, which is why the Brady brand was created. But it doesn't surprise me. I think it's a great idea. Like we talked about LeBron and his brand with Nike and stuff, and the issues there with him going to Liverpool. Maybe, like you said, the roadmap and stuff for someone like future goats, like LeBron. I can't really think of any other goals we've talked about on the podcast here, but that's why I think that, like you said, is it the perfect roadmap? We'll see, but it seems like the great roadmap there. I'd love to hear more about you having this roadmap while I put on my Bills hat.
Oh my god, classic. Yeah. So, just in regards to the roadmap, and I guess before we get into it, I'll just touch on what you said first. So, you're right, and it's something I do touch on. He has TB12, and it kind of seems like, hey, isn't this just kind of competing brands? But I think it's actually just taking it to the next level, and that's something I kind of describe within the newsletter. Where let's go from the start, right? And this is what I call it in the newsletter. The start is essentially you posting or connecting yourself or sharing, creating content that's related solely to your interests and not caring what anyone else thinks, right? So Haral is a fan of sports and the Bills, and let's say he's just a sports memorabilia connoisseur. So let's go with that. And he doesn't care how many people know or like or whatever. He just connects himself to sports memorabilia. He's posting, he's talking about it, etc. So now when people think of Haral, they're thinking of sports memorabilia. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Once he kind of establishes that and he has a base audience, like Tom Brady did with his health and peak performance, and everyone heard about the avocado ice cream. So people are like, okay, this guy is all about peak performance and taking care of his body and excellence, essentially, right within the sporting space. So what he did to take it to the next level is he's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to release a TB12 nutrition book. Everyone heard about the avocado ice cream, the no eating strawberries, and want to hear more about it. So he's kind of capitalizing on this base that he created. Same way with Haral, where maybe you'd create your own type of sports memorabilia, or maybe you'd create a podcast, or maybe you'd partner with Fanatics, right? You're kind of just capitalizing on this base that you've created. And then from there, Tom Brady or even a Haral, what you would do next is you would kind of want to start owning what you've created, right, rather than capitalizing. So maybe you would develop your own sports memorabilia business, right? Haral's hats, right? And that's you'd start creating and doing licensing deals with the Bills. Whereas Brady, he created TB12 because they started having nutrition and pliability centers, right? So basically taking the customer base he built with a TB12 book and transferring them over to the gyms and whatever else facilities they were offering. And I think what this just does now is just goes to the stratosphere of not many people are able to do it, but it's essentially going from, hey, not only do we have the gyms now for people to go train in and athletes to be in, but now we're going to supply you with the apparel to wear within those gyms, right? So I think it's just constantly leveling up. And I think for most athletes, when you think about this, is you're like, hey, like that's kind of hard to do, right? How am I gonna, go from talking about avocado ice cream, releasing a book, releasing gyms, and having apparel for those gyms, right? What most people can end up doing is something similar to Haral, where it'd be, hey, I'm interested in sports memorabilia. I'm going to partner with Fanatics, get a sponsorship from them, and then from there, maybe I'd have my own apparel line or podcast, right? And that's where you kind of have the own audience. And then, yeah, this is the thing now. I know I read something where we're saying he wants to, compete with Jordan Brand. That's where he wants Brady Brand to go. I think, yeah, even though it's at a different level, it's still the same steps I think many people take or even strive for. So those are kind of my 2 cents.
I think that makes perfect sense. I think the thing you mentioned there with the Jordan brand at the end is probably, the best part of it because, you can connect with the Brady brand without having to be a football fan. And I think that's probably
Exactly.
the big point of it, right? TB12, you're going to be connected to Tom Brady 12, like all that stuff. It's ingrained with him and his football and NFL career. But, the Brady brand, literally you could close your eyes. We had problems like we stumbled over our words that we were like, Brady brand, Brady bunch, like, just a bunch of stuff there where like, it doesn't connect to Tom Brady as much. And like you said, for the roadmap there, it's interesting because, we talked about like, creating a brand out of something, tying yourself to something like sports memorabilia and certain individual. Like, you want to be your name has to be synchronous with one thing for people to start to know you as that guy. And now it's like, like you reach that peak almost. And then instead of plateauing, if you want to keep climbing, you now have to detach yourself. And if you're creating a brand, you've got to be able to make it universal.
100%. That's kind of things we've chatted about this over the last few episodes as well, right? Where, like I think was it last week we're talking about logos, if I'm not mistaken, or even just brand names that athletes are picking. You kind of go to the trajectory, right? For a personal brand, you want it all about your face, right? You're like, hey, connect my face, my name, whatever, with avocados, sports memorabilia, outdoors, whatever you're interested in. And as you kind of level up and you kind of get to the, you kind of make that base, people know about it. You then, capitalize it with partnerships. Then you kind of start owning it. Then from there, like, oh, I'm at the top. What do I do next? Now you go start climbing a different mountain where like, hey, I kind of want to start separating myself from my business and my face, right? So that's why you start doing things where, hey, Brady's still attached to it, but maybe our moms, if they're at Nordstrom when this launches, they would have no idea it's related to Tom Brady, right? So I think that's the difference of the stratosphere. Most athletes just strive to get their personal brands to the level of, hey, I have ownership, whether it's a company they started or they have a podcast that's generating a lot of revenue. Well, then where you kind of taking it to GOAT level, and this is the thing we are talking about with logos last week, when you can start just creating logos and kind of separating yourself from it, that's when you start hitting Michael Jordan level, right? And that's what we're talking about. And Brady's essentially someone that can rival him because he's the GOAT of football and he's huge, right? They have 6 posts and almost 100,000 followers, and they haven't even launched a T-shirt yet. So yeah, no, it's pretty cool and definitely something to strive for, right? Whether you're an athlete in the NFL right now, or even you're someone in college, right? So yeah. Any other points, Earl?
Yeah, Brady's good. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. No, it looks good. I'm curious how much this is gonna. Let's see here. Everyone can get a live reaction to this. It says password, so that's not good that they have a link. That's it. Okay.
He does look
I
like a model. You know what?
be
I'll give him that.
expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to be like it's almost like you're trying to find that combination of like athletic wear and also like maybe not hype beast, but like high end wear, right? Like it's supposed to be a premium luxury product almost for like peak performance and people who want to be like the top athletes. But like
Yeah.
again, looking at the clothes they're wearing and stuff, you don't get the football vibe, which is probably the best part, right?
Yeah. I see this as a mix between like you're saying sportswear and athleisure, where it's almost like think about it. He's been partnering with Under Armour for such a long time, and he's also like a yogi type of person with the food he eats and like how he trains. That's essentially the mix of Lululemon and Under Armour is how I view it. But
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it.
interesting. I'm sure I'll probably get one and just kind of see what it's like and support the brand. Why not? If you have any questions, you can always, follow us at Whitewell Marketing. Send us a DM. We have, shorts, reels, TikToks, whatever they're called now, short form content going out every day where, we're providing tips and tricks. So check us out there. And as always, check out the Sport Marketeer. Link is in the description. And yeah, you can kind of get this, the topics we chatted about in more detailed written form. And yeah, check it out. Unless there's anything else, Haral, to say, thanks for joining, and we'll see you guys next week. All
Always
right,
a pleasure. Good night, everybody.
have a good one.